Welcome to the Chess Angle. This is not your typical chess podcast. If you're an amateur or club-level player, the Chess Angle is for you. Our content is aimed at busy adults who are serious about the game but have limited study time. Featured guests include both amateur and titled players alike. And now, here's your host, director of the Long Island Chess Club, Neal Bellon.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I am very excited because this is our first interview episode of the season. My guest this week is Xilin Chen. He's a friend, a Long Island Chess Club regular. His current USCF rating is 2144. Almost to master, like one more bite of breakfast. He's almost there. We're going to talk about that. He's a student at Stonybrook University here on Long Island. So Xilin, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, glad to be here actually. So I had thought about, so my rating right now is 2144. So I had thought about to become a national master actually. But right now I wasn't really thinking about this anymore. I would just enjoy on chess mostly because I figured out, objective like this could make me courageous. But it could also, on the other hand, make me very stressful at some times. Specifically, this can be very distracting while you are actually playing a tournament game. So I remember that this type of stress actually affected me in a negative way, in some extent, in one of my tournaments here at the Long Island Chess Club. I believe it was actually my first tournament in LICC actually. So if I remember correctly, that was round 4 when I had black pieces against Tainer Tuor, a very strong expert player. He doesn't really play here at the Long Island Chess Club anymore. But I remember that, he was the highest rated player during the time that I first came to the Long Island Chess Club. So I think he's NM strength, very, very strong player. He was maybe 2170 at the time. I haven't really played any tournaments at the time. It would be my honor to play such a high-rated and very strong player. I was very excited and nervous at the time. Then immediately I actually got surprised when he played the first move. So he started with a move 1d4. It's actually very, very surprising to me because I kind of figured that I'm going to play against him in the 4th round, because after the 3rd round, both me and him are 3 out of 3. So I think, next game, unless he took a bye, then, almost certainly I'm going to play him. So I expected his game in round 3. He played the white side, and he played 1e4, and it was some weird Sicilian game, and he won the game eventually. So I was preparing for the King's Pawn opening game, and he started with 1d4. So I wasn't sure, if he's prepping for me or if there is anything, weird going on. But at the end, I decided to just go very, very solid. So I played the move 1d5 against d4. And he plays c4, I play e6, after knight c3, knight f6, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. It's kind of a very equal position. And he played the move bishop g5, I play bishop e7, and he plays e3, I play c6. It's a very, very solid setup. And after bishop b3, castles, knight e2, and I play the move knight to d7. And he also castled, and I play the move rook e8. And here he plays the move f3. And at the time, I'm not a very, very strong player, at least in the opening part. So I see that his idea is trying to go e4 and so on. But I wasn't sure what to do at the time. And another thing that came to my mind is that I was thinking that about some outside factors than chess. So at the time, I was thinking that, if I can draw against Tainer, or if I can maybe win against Tainer, it'll be a very good way for me to prove myself. So I was thinking about that. And also I was thinking that, okay, if I can win the game, we are both on 3 out of 3. So if I can win the game, I can just win the tournament. So winning the tournament and winning the prizes, it will be a very good objective. So I was thinking about like this thing, okay, whether I can win the tournament and whether I can prove myself. So I was thinking about this objective, and this actually affected my calculation quite bad. So at the end, I couldn't really calculate, I remember. So I played a very sloppy move after he plays f3. I believe I played the move c5 actually, which Engine says was not a very good move because white can just play the move bishop takes knight, and after the exchange, my pawn on c5 it's very weak. White can probably just capture that. But the good news is that I was quite lucky that game. Somehow I got away with the move upon c5. He never actually captured on c5, and at the end, he played a move, a very weird looking move at the end. I remember he played something like knight g3, and as soon as that knight left the e2 square, I immediately just capture on d4. And after he recaptures, now the pawn structure becomes very, very weird. Because, okay, he has regularly it will be fine. Okay, so both sides has an IQP. It's very, very equal. But with a pawn on f4, with a pawn on f3, usually white side will try to play the move e4 because the pawn on f3 supports e4. And when you can get e4, you can gain more space in the center. You can threaten to play pawn takes pawn on d5. You can also threaten to play the move e5 to kick the knight on f6 away. So that will be like some ways of attacking. So f3, e4, e5, and f4 try to launch a pawn storm against my king. But once the pawn has traded off, you don't have the e4 resource anymore, and the pawn on f3 just looks very, very weird. So after the pawn got traded off, I think according to Engine, it was a very, very equal position. And after that, I think he actually made it some inaccuracies, and I have the bishop pairs against his bishop and knight. So at the end, I actually won the game in a very, very tense fashion. It was I would say a blitz fashion. So both of us are under 10 seconds, I think. And okay, it was very, very close. So I was quite lucky to win that game. It's definitely like a game that anyone can win at the end. I was quite fortunate, I would say. But simultaneously, a lesson I can also learn from that game is that, okay, if I do not think about, okay, any objective like that, rather than that, if I could just focus on my game mainly, then I will probably have more time to actually calculate and plan my game out. So that's why right now I wouldn't think about, I would say, like achieving masters and so on. Rather than that, I will just I would say mainly focus in my game and have fun. I would say that's my thought on this.
So what happened was you started thinking about the result and all those things, the prizes, all that stuff, rather than just focusing on the game. And you got like you said, you got a little bit lucky because it kind of distracted you. Now, does that happen a lot? Do you find that? I think for all of us, like our mind starts to kind of get away from. Does that happen a lot or just once in a while? Is that something you struggle with on a regular basis?
No, I think at that time, I think it does happen to me like once a while. But after I figured out, okay, I'm just after that, okay, those occasions, I just told myself, okay, stop thinking about those prizes. And I think, okay, so at least, okay, the thought about prizes actually almost never came up to me. So I got distracted by other elements, but I would say not about let's say achieving masters and prizes and so on. At least not this time.
Can you talk a little bit about your thought process in general? Are you kind of thinking, because it's a little bit different for everyone. Some people have kind of a more immediate view. They're just looking a few moves ahead. Are you thinking deep planning? Are you thinking semi-deep planning? Does it depend on your opponent? Like, is there a general process you go through when you're looking at a position?
Yeah, I think when I first start playing tournament games, sometimes I do like calculated like some weird lines, and I kind of like calculated. I would try to say at least like 5 moves ahead, but at the end, the consequence is that okay, if I start doing that, if I try to calculate a lot, then sometimes my time will burn a lot. So at the end, my recent strategy is just that, okay, if I have more or less like force moves or force ideas, then I will just play them out first. Unless, okay, I'm in, let's say, critical positions, then I will burn my time and try to find either, okay, like a tactical sequence, or let's say like a clear game plan to play. Usually that's my plan right now.
And what if you look at a position where I'm just trying to get into your head a little bit, like someone of your level. Let's say you look at one of those positions where you have no idea what to do. It's just very difficult to read. It's not necessarily a messy tactical position. It could even be a quiet position, but you're really not sure what to do. You're not sure what the plan is. How do you handle that? Do you have a sort of a go-to plan for that? Or is it position dependent? Are there certain things that you fall back on? I'm just wondering how you handle that.
Okay, so definitely, okay, I would say it's position dependent. But okay, no matter okay what type of position I get, okay, the first thing is that okay, let's say if I do not okay understand the position quite much, then I will just take a deep breath and try to walk around a little bit, try to reduce like some stress. And after that, I will like take a sip of water, and then I will come back to the board. And then I will just think about, okay, so I will start analyzing, okay, what threats can I try to make towards my opponent? Okay, so what are some weaknesses in some positions? For example, okay, does he have any undefended pawns? And after that, I will start it to evaluate the game from his perspective. That will be, okay, do I have any weaknesses on like in my position, in my camp? Do I have any undefended material? And after evaluating those threats, then I will say that, okay, so I will try to calculate, okay, so let's say if he has this one threat, I'm just going to say, let's say if he has one weaknesses on B7 and I have one weaknesses on, let's say, G2, then I will start calculating that, okay, so the speed, okay, so like how fast can I try to capture his B7 pawn, and how fast can he try to capture my G2 pawn? And after that, okay, if I'm fast enough, then I'm going to basically start attacking his weaknesses. If let's say if he's faster on attacking my weaknesses, then I will try to work something out. Then it's basically just comparing and contrast, okay, to see, okay, first of all, how many weaknesses does both sides have? And two, okay, so how fast will be both sides on attacking those?
Yeah, and I like what you said about stepping away from the board. I think that's important too. I agree with you. That's kind of what I do, because if you're sitting there and it's not happening, there's something about stepping away, and then you look at it with fresh eyes, and an idea that you didn't see, it just pops into your head.
Yeah, that's actually very, very true. I remember that, okay, there was one game that I played against James Nitz. So again, very friendly player, very, very strong player as well. So there was one game that, okay, I played against him. And okay, so after a series of calculation, I noticed that, okay, it will be much better for me to enter the king and pawn endgame. And I spent 20 minutes there. And at the end, I decided to just go into the king and pawn endgame. And after that, engine says, okay, it was a very good decision. Okay, that's good. But at the time, I think I was a little bit tired. But I didn't really walk around. And what I did is that I just stay at the board. I still have like about 18 minutes on my clock. But my brain wasn't really working at the time. And I just don't know what happened. I pretended to think, but I couldn't really calculate any good lines. And engine says it was already -5, but I couldn't really work out the line. and I got very frustrated at the end. I actually lost the game. So right now, it was actually a good lesson for me. So at the time after that, okay, I actually work on my end games a lot. But at the time, I was thinking that, okay, if I actually just relax a little bit, maybe take a walk, take like some water, and then reevaluate the position, maybe the result will be better. So that's why I think walking around and try to reduce like some stress that you have is actually very, very important during a game.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. I think the idea of getting up and walking around, I think that's underrated. I think more players need to do that. But what happens is they get so engrossed in the game. It's like they want to finish the task, so to speak. They don't want to get up until after they move. But very often I find getting up on your own time is actually more beneficial than getting up on your opponent's time, because you're the one who has to move, right? You want to come back with a clear head when you have to move, not so much when your opponent has to move, right? Because, and then you're avoiding blunders and stuff. But I agree with you completely, because I do get up from the board a lot and I find it helps. Now, I want to go back to you achieving master. Obviously, I know you want it, but you said something interesting. It seems to me that you're kind of just waiting for it to happen organically, because you feel if you really push yourself, it's actually going to make it worse because there's going to be too much pressure on you. Is that right? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
I just waited for it to happen. And most importantly, I just want to enjoy the game of chess. And as I said, if I push it too hard, I don't want to suffer. At least I don't want to handle the burden of stress. So like during the game. Because, okay, if I keep that thoughts in my head in every game, it will be very, very tired. For example, let's say if I played against 1800 player, then I don't want to like carry on this stress like when I'm going to play him. Rather, I want to enjoy the game. I want to like if I make the accurate moves, if my plan is it's correct, if my tactical calculation it works or not. I want to focus on like the game mainly. But if I keep like thinking on, okay, let's say if I lose against this 1800 player, then I will lose, let's say, 18 points. If I drew against him, I will lose 10 points, something like that. It will be very, very tired. So that's why at the end, I will just like, okay, so let's say I will just wait it till it happens. If it happens, that will be great. If it doesn't happen, then okay, I'll just keep improving on myself.
Now, do you find it's harder to get your rating up now because there's rating deflation? A lot of these low-rated players play much stronger. Do you find playing a lot of low-rated players is difficult? Like, do you believe in the whole rating deflation thing, that these players are a lot stronger than their listed ratings?
Actually, in my recent tournament at LICC, I was playing like a kid. He was unrated, I think. So I play white against him and everything is very, very normal. And suddenly, like in the middle game, he just started sacrificing exchange. And I wasn't sure, okay, so at the first glance, I think, okay, this just simply doesn't work. And afterwards, when I checked with the engine, of course, after the game, engine also said, okay, this sacrifice doesn't really work. But apparently, I just underestimated my opponent's idea a little bit. And after 3 to 5 moves, I started to make inaccuracies, and okay, suddenly, okay, he started like some pawn storms, I think, and then although I was up at exchange, but my rook can never be activated actually. So it was a really hard time. And I think my opponent, although unrated, he definitely played like play at least like let's say 1600 or 1700 strength. It's just that, okay, so I won the game eventually because I think he doesn't really have any tournament experience. So I think at the critical moment where he can have decisive advantage, he started to play some weird moves, and that allow my rook to have a lot of activity. And that's the reason I kind of like turned the paper around. But I do have to agree with you. I think this rating deflation is certainly a thing, and there are a lot of, let's say, underrated players nowadays.
Now, let me ask you about your own improvement, because I was looking you up in the USCF just in preparation for this. And I saw something, it sort of contradicts what you're saying a little bit. You went from 1700. I looked at this 3 times to make sure I was reading this correctly. You went from 1700 to 2144 in 2 years, which is crazy. I mean, can you explain that? Like, what was that about? I guess, were you much stronger when you started? Like, can you talk about how that happened and when you started playing in tournaments and how you made such a huge increase? I mean, that's like what, like 400, over 400 points in 2 years. Like, can you tell me about that? Because I'm really curious about how that went down.
Yeah, sure. So I think one thing is that, okay, so I started in the recent 2 years, I started to study chess more seriously. That's one factor. Another factor is that my 1700 rating, like 2 years ago, it was a little bit like, I would say, maybe slightly underrated a little bit, because at that time I think my rating should be around. Again, I could be wrong, but my estimated rating at the time, I think it should be about 1800 to 1900 at the time. The only reason that I didn't really play in any tournaments before is that I don't really have a car beforehand. So once I have a car, and then I start traveling a lot and try to play a lot of tournaments. So that's why I think one thing is that, okay, so there are 2 factors, simply. One factor is that, okay, I started to study chess more seriously these 2 years. Another factor is that, okay, due to the reason that I don't really have a car, I couldn't really play in any tournaments back then.
Now, let's just kind of get some history here. When did you first start playing in over-the-board tournaments?
Well, I think my first over-the-board tournament, it was, if I remember correctly, I think it was at the, I think it is in the last year of my high school. Because, okay, I actually made the high school. I actually created the high school, the chess club in my high school, like with other friends. And as a celebration, after graduating from the high school, I decided to go to a tournament over the board. I think I went to the Marshall Chess Club, and I actually lost all the games there. And after that, okay, the college starts. So I gave up on chess briefly because of the college work and so on. And after that, I think after another year, I found many friends in my chess club here at Stonybrook, who is also like who are also chess addicts. That's the reason that I started to focus on chess again.
Okay, so you played your first tournament in high school. When did you first learn how to play the game?
Yeah, I think it was in my second year of high school. That's the first time that I started learning chess. And it was pretty fun at the time. I have like some friends who is also very curious about the games. And we actually just play and analyze our games after school finished. And it was very exciting, like for a year. But after that, okay, I started to take some AP classes at the time. And I kind of give up on chess a little bit again. So briefly, to summarize, so I started in my second year of my high school playing chess, and then I kind of went on and off a little bit.
All right. So, but it sounds like you have a lot of natural ability, right? It sounds like you picked it up pretty quickly. This wasn't like a really long, like you learned how to play and then you were doing well pretty quickly. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say it that way. I would say that, okay, if I remember correctly, I think my initial online rating, it was 1200, and it took me a long time for me to went from 1200 to 1400 online. So I wouldn't say, okay, it was a quick development. Rather, I would say that, okay, so I think everybody has like a rating barrier at some time. Once you cross that rating barrier, then I would say everything becomes easier, I would say. Yeah, I think that's the reason. Uh, I think one rating barrier, it was 1200 online rating on chess.com. Another rating barrier, I think it is 1900 on chess.com. That's another barrier, I think. So I think everyone has a rating barrier. Once you are able to overcome that, then okay, so then the things becomes much easier, I would say.
Yeah, so you played online before you started playing over the board. You played online a lot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And you felt that was beneficial. Now, there's a lot of discussion about online chess and the time controls. Were you playing a lot of speed chess? And like what time controls were you playing when you were playing online?
Yeah, I mostly played the 3+0 and 1+0 games. So like blitz games and blitz games.
I thought you were going to say like 10-minute games or so. So 3-0 and 1-0. Now you like that?
Yes, I like that a lot, actually.
All right. Yeah, that's not really my thing, but okay. And you felt these 3-0 games, you felt they helped you improve. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Were you playing like one after the other, or were you playing like 3 or 4 of them and then analyzing them? Or was it just playing? Like, I assumed you analyzed them also. I don't know. Maybe you didn't. I'm just like, what did that look like?
Yeah, to be honest, at the start, I was trying to play like some 15+10 games, like on chess.com. But I remember that, okay, at like during late night times, when I start like pairing, I will have to wait for like 3 minutes in order to get like a game. And plus 15-10 is actually a little bit long, so it's a little bit boring at a time for me. And unlike 3-0 or like 1-0, like once you like click okay pairing button, then you will almost instantly get a game. So that's the reason that okay I started to play like a lot of like 3-0 game and 1-0 game. And those games can definitely be like beneficial like on the one hand. Of course, like they could be like very, very quotation mark addictive. I remember that okay, there was one occasion that okay, I just playing like about 100 bullet games nonstop. So it took me like a few hours, and then during the next day, I actually woke up late to school. That's the bad side about like playing like addictively, I would say. So you do have to like control yourself a little bit. But the good thing is that if you play like this blitz games and bullet games, one thing that you can gain from them is the intuition and tactical sharpness, I would say. Because in those games, a lot of time you have to find those tactics very, very quickly. Otherwise, your opponent is just going to flag you. So that's definitely like one thing that is very, very helpful. Another thing that is very, very helpful is that, by playing like this type of like blitz games and bullet games a lot, you kind of like gain some confidence and ability to play while you are in time trouble. So as I said before, during like my game against like Tainer, I saw like my time like went like below like 1 minute. I was of course very, very nervous, but I wasn't if I remember correctly, I wasn't like frightened during the game because I know that I have been playing bullets games a lot, so this is just one of those occasions where I have time troubles. So I think that's also another important thing that you can gain from playing bullets games. One other thing that you can learn from these games is that it could help you to overcome your tilt. So a lot of time, so you could have like a totally winning position. You have 2 extra queens, maybe like 3 extra pawns or something like that, and your opponent flags you. So that's of course very, very, that could be like very, very upset, and that could make you very, very angry. But as you get flagged more often, you can start to like overcome those tilt. And in your, let's say, in-person games, I think you'll be less likely to become tilted by those things, by those elements, I will say. And for me, I usually play like if it's blitz games, I usually play like about like let's say 5 to 6 games, and after that I will analyze some of them. And let's say if I have like 5 to 6 games in a row and I just won them very, very smoothly, maybe I will play more until let's say I found like some interesting games to analyze. And if it's bullet games, it could take like longer. Maybe I'll play like 12 games and then I will stop and analyze if there is any interesting games. Sometimes I will also stop right away if I have, let's say, if I saw some interesting openings. So what I do is that after that game, first of all, I'm going to use engine to run down all the lines. Then second of all, let's say if my opponent plays a very interesting variations that I never seen before, for example, I'm just going to randomly say some opening, for example, D4, D5, and E4. Let's say if my opponent, I think that's called the Black Mortimer Gambit. So if my opponent started to play this weird lines, this weird gambits, I'm going to Google it up to see, okay, how interested is that? If it's good, then okay, so I'm going to analyze it a little bit and maybe see some videos. If not, then I will just move on.
All right. See, there's a lot to unpack there because you basically said, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, Xilin. You basically said the opposite of what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to tell me about books and like a study plan and that speed games are awful. And you're telling me the complete opposite because it sounds like you really didn't use books a lot. And it sounds like the speed chess helped you because that's like a big thing because most people, avoid speed chess. That's probably something that I would say, but it seemed to help you. I guess you just had a knack for it. And, it's interesting. You said it helped you with tilt. It helped you with your over the board play. So am I correct that you really weren't a book person? Is that right? You really didn't use a lot of books. Maybe you did. That's the impression I'm getting. Is that right?
First of all, I will say that, okay, books could definitely be very, very helpful. But okay, me personally, I just don't use books a lot, I would say. At the start, I do borrow some books. I think when I first start learning chess, I do read some books. For example, there's a book called Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess, if I remember correctly. And after that, okay, once I got to the platform of chess.com and thechess.org, I think okay, it's just much more convenient to learn chess online because there are it's just so convenient because on those platforms, okay, you can play against other players. You can also analyze your games. You can also see some news to see okay what's happening on the board. So that's why after seeing okay how convenient is this online platforms, then I quickly shifted from a book person to let's say to an online person.
Right. And that seems to be the trend for a lot of younger players now, because there are so many things online, even things you don't have to pay for on YouTube, other videos. There's a lot on chess.com. Chess.com, a premium membership is paid, but there's so much study material that's included in that at no additional cost. Now, were you just playing online? When you say you were an online person, were you using videos and other study materials, or was it mostly just playing?
I would say that, okay, of course, playing, it will be a very large portion. But another portion is that, okay, I will also utilize the news feature. I actually like the news feature on chess.com a lot because not only you can know, okay, what's going on, around the world, you can also see some very good games analyzed there. So I think there is a feature called Games of the Day, in the chess.com news section. So usually, okay, I will just click on that to see, okay, what's happening, let's say today. So I think I can I can see, okay, what's going on in the world. Another thing is that I can also learn from the annotations of the analysis of that game, the game of the day. So that's why I suggested.
I know you're still playing a lot of these bullet games, these three. Well, I guess bullet is 1-0, but are you playing a lot of 3-0 games as well?
Yeah, if I have time, then I will during my spare time I'll just play 3-0 or 1-0 a lot.
Are you also studying still, or is it just mostly playing? Are you doing any kind of studying at all now?
My main way of studying is just, I think, from my own games, I would say. So mostly it will be playing, and I still study, I would say. But it's just that my ways of study is just mostly from my games, and I review my games and to see if there is something interesting. And another way that I study is by just taking a look of like what's happening like in the news section. So I analyze the games of the days to see if there's any interesting insights there that I can learn and apply in my own game. So those are, I would say, two main ways that I study chess for now.
So pretty much it sounds like to me your whole journey was pretty much really playing and studying your games. Is that right?
Yeah, I think mostly that is the case. And maybe sometimes I also like go online and look at some chess videos.
But you don't have, it's not like you're going to say, oh, this is the one book that changed my life, or this is the one, nothing like that. It was kind of just organic from playing, studying, and, it seems to me a lot of natural ability. Because I mean, most players, the overwhelming majority, aren't going to jump from 1700 to 2144 in 2 years. But like you said, that 1700 was probably at least 100 points too low. So just very interesting journey because it doesn't follow the usual, quote unquote formulas, for lack of a better word, like study this. And as far as a plan, it was kind of like you just jumped in and did it, studied your games, and you seem to kind of have a natural intuition for the game. Is that kind of an accurate depiction of your path?
I think the reason from that rating jump is that I think it's utilizing like the online resources. I wouldn't say it's like natural ability. It's mostly, I would say, like at least for me, it's utilizing the convenient online chess resources, on chess.org, on chess.com. And also sometimes I think luck is also very, very important. In many of my tournament games, I was about to lose the game, but somehow my opponent just make a one move blunder, or maybe several inaccurate moves, and I just completely turn around the table. So that actually happens, I would say, occasionally, like in many of my tournament games. So I would definitely say there is also some luck in that case, but I wouldn't say it's natural ability.
I think you're selling yourself short a little bit, but anyway, what about openings? What's your theory on that? Do you play the same openings? Do you mix it up? I'm curious about that because I know when I played you, you played the Catalan against me, which I know it's tricky for a lot of players. That was actually a good game, but do you have like a set repertoire with white and black, or do you mix it up? I'm curious what your approach is.
Yeah, I do have like a set of like repertoires because let's say if a player doesn't really have his opening repertoire, then let's say it will be very, very hard to play any online games at least, because let's say in a 3-0 game, if you think a lot in the opening phase, then most likely your opponent is just going to flag you. Maybe you played better than him, maybe you are completely winning in the middle game, but let's say if you don't play the opening fast enough, you are just going to be, most of the time you're just going to be flagged. So I do have a set of like opening repertoires, but it's also very important sometimes to deviate a little bit. Actually, in one of my recent tournaments that I was playing, I actually got like prep a lot by my opponent because my opponent they kind of anticipated me to play the Catalan, and I did. They actually like play a very good game against me, and I was pretty much worse the entire game. But I think they make like two inaccurate moves, and I actually just turn the table around and I just win the game. So that's why one, it's very important for you to have the repertoire, so you know, okay, what you are doing. You have the confidence to play the opening stage. But sometimes it's also very important to deviate a little bit, so your opponent cannot really like prep you easily.
Yeah. So is the Catalan? Would you say that's like your main opening is white?
I would say that okay. At least right now, it's one of like my main openings as white because it's just very, very solid, and it's one of those openings that you can almost close your eyes and play it. but okay, so now I also have to like change a little bit because okay, I actually got like very hard in one of my recent tournaments. So Of course, I strongly recommend Catalan. I think it's a very flexible openings. It's okay. White it's a very safe opening for white, and if black mishandles the position, white can get a very, very comfortable position. But it's also very important to change your opening a little bit so your opponent cannot easily grab you.
Yeah. Now, what about as black? Like when you face E4, what's your standard response? If that's okay, I don't know. Maybe you don't want to give it away. I don't want you to give away any secrets, but if it's okay against E4, what do you usually play?
Yeah, against E4, usually I play C6 or C5. Depends on who my opponent is and what's my opponent's rating. Again, like no offense to like lower rated player for sure. But let's say if I'm playing against let's say lower rated player, and if I'm feeling good on that day, let's say if I'm not tired, then I'll play C5 and try to, let's say, have like a fight, have like a fight with them, like over the board. Let's say if I'm playing against a very strong player, then with E4, I will probably play C6 and try to be solid and try to ask them, okay, how are you going to, let's say, crush me? Because Caro-Kann is one of those solid openings that you can play, and it's very, very hard to lose or to get crushed. So generally, if against, let's say, higher rated player, most of the time I'll play 1c6 against e4, and against lower rated player I'll play like c5 to just have like a very, very, let's say, have a intense game.
And last thing, what do you play against D4?
D4, I think D4 I actually play like a lot of like setup. I think I tried many openings. I don't really have like a fixed opening. Like sometimes I played like D5. Like some other time I also played the King's Indian. I think okay, so let's say if I felt okay, that I'm very, very energetic that day, most of the time I'll play either Greenfield or King's Indians, because those two openings I think like they could be very, very sharp and tactical, and most importantly, like there could be a lot of like fun by playing those two openings. But let's say if I'm very, very tired, or let's say if I'm very nervous, like okay, back then when during the time when I played against Tainer, then I will play the move D5 and just be solid.
Do you get nervous when you play, like over the board?
I think actually occasionally, like if I get like tired from, let's say, from classes or from driving, sometimes I'll feel like very, very tired. And usually during those times, I'll just play like some very solid openings.
So, because I do the same thing, sometimes you have to, I mean, I have my pet openings, but as far as how you want to approach the position, as far as how risky you want to play or not, yeah, a lot of it depends on your energy level. Because, it's at night, it's during the week. It's like you said, a lot of us were working or we're students. You're really not at 100%, right? And so, you have to adjust your game accordingly. You discussed the game with Tanner sort of thematically. Did you have another game or two? I thought you mentioned when we were speaking before, you might have another game you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I actually have like some interesting games. I think another game, it was against National Master team Miraboli, I think.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so at that time I think it was also it's also a very, very interesting game. I think both me and him are on 3.5, like 3.5 out of 4, and it's the last round, I think. So I was playing black against him. So he started off with the move e4. I think he's a e4 player. So I play again, like my general approach against higher rated player is just to be solid. So I played c6, the Caro-Kann, and after d4, d5, he played the move e5, the advanced variation in the Caro-Kann defense. So I just play like the move bishop f5, like a very standard move. Sometimes people also go c5. I think c5 it's a more dynamic way to play because sort of you are breaking up your pawn structure a little bit. So c5 is definitely like it's one of the main move, but I still just go with the move bishop f5 to be very, very solid. And him went to the move knight f3, and after e6, bishop e2. So I think that is called a short variation, like knight f3 and bishop e2 setup. And he's trying to basically still play the position. And in the middle game, like White's idea could be just started to play the move, let's say moving the f3 knight away and started to push the f pawn and g pawn, and that's actually what he did during the game. And I remember that I spent about 30 minutes or 40 minutes, actually I think 30 minutes to calculate, what's going on after like f4 and g4 stuff. And at the end, I figured like most things out. I was quite lucky that in that day I was not so tired. Like I would say like I was kind of like energetic and I was ready to fight actually. So I kind of like evaluate the position correctly. And after like g4 and f4, I stop his threat and his attack kind of like slows down. And his pieces are looking a little bit awkward because by playing the move f4, he first started with the move knight e1, moving the knight away from the center f3 square. So once his attack slows down, then in Caro-Kann, one of the main ideas is that in the middle game you go like something like queen b6 and c5. C5 break is very, very thematic, I would say. And I actually just counterattack the position. And his position actually just started falling apart because, as I said, once his attack couldn't get through, his pieces are quite underdeveloped in the back rank. So that's why I started counter-attacking him. And I won like 2 pawns in a row. And that actually just wins me the game, actually. So it was quite exciting game. And it was also quite lucky for me because at that time I wasn't very, very tired. I was ready to fight. And at the end, I won the game.
I think I'm going to end it there. So Xilin, very, very interesting story, very interesting journey, very fascinating about how your online experience really helped shape you. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards myself is more online, because even if you don't play, a lot of the lessons in the videos, it's almost just as good as the books now. Especially if there are good explanations. Yeah,
in my opinion, they could be like a good shortcut. I think they are actually like this online resources, online articles, online news. Like in my views, I think they are just equally good as books. Sometimes, in the books, you could be like, it could be very, very tired to look at, the diagrams, the words, and so on, and put it up, like put those annotations on the board. It could be very, very tired. But like online, the thing is that it's, I think they are a mini version of the book. And also, besides that, I think they are going to be like more entertainment. For example, like within a book, so let's say like this chapter is about Ruy Lopez. It's just going to be like Ruy Lopez itself only. But let's say when you are just browsing this online, so you can look at like 1 or 2 Ruy Lopez game. Let's say if you get tired, maybe you can go on and play 1 or 2 Blitz games. Maybe you can read another, let's say, interesting article and so on. So that's why I would say online, it's just another version of the book. And in addition, I think it's more diverse online. There's more diverse content online.
That's interesting. A lot of people, that is kind of a thing now. A lot of people are kind of putting the books to the side because everything's online. And plus because everything coordinates, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your tablet, right? Because let's say your chess.com account, whatever platform you use, it's the same account. So whatever you're doing on your desktop or your laptop, you can finish on your phone. And so you can utilize those gaps of time throughout the day, especially if you're a busy adult. So very, very interesting. But Xilin, I appreciate you sharing your story. Very interesting journey. And again, I'm laughing because a lot of what you said about your development, it was just very different from what I assumed you were going to say. And that's the funny thing about life. You make these judgments about people. Oh, he must do this or she must do that. And it was very different. So I found it very enlightening, very interesting to hear your story. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Neal. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
No, pleasure was mine. And for those of you listening at home, we really appreciate it, and I hope you win your next game. Have a great day, everybody.